Hi everyone, in this video we're gonna create an elegant and awesome hamburger menu with React. So this is actually what we're gonna be creating. This is just a simple test web page in here, going dark theme in the background, and this is the hamburger menu we're gonna be using with awesome animation. So if we click it, you see the menu comes from the right with really elegant animation. You can click, close it back, and you see the SVG2 working animation perfectly. So yeah, looking absolutely great. So this is what we're going to creating throughout this video tutorial. Hope you guys enjoy this one and keep it up, and let's get started. So let's just get started, and here we go. Got a pretty basic project of Create React App. So I use the CRA in here to set up pretty much as every video. I use CRA to set up these projects in here. It's pretty basic. But I go on like behind the scenes and I created just a simple boilerplate, and I created just like a navigation bar and some web page there. So it can just like, gives us an assessment or a context to put the menu on and just like to preview the menu. It's not a necessity. We're not going to cover that because it's pretty simple. Just some text and a navigation bar on the top of the page. And what we're going to be focusing much on this video is actually creating the hamburger menu and how to put the menu from like the right side. It comes from the right side a little bit, and how animation works, how toggling the SVG animation works, how to use a frame of motion with that, and many stuff. So it's going to be focusing in here. As Chris has said before, I already set up a couple of things in here like a navigation bar and stuff. And what we need to do before getting started is actually installing what we will be using. Mainly, we're going to be using two things. First is actually the style components, and we're going to be using style components for putting the CSS together. The second one is frame of motion. If you guessed it, yes, it is frame of motion, and we're going to be using frame of motion with its own declarative awesome API to put animation into work with our React components plus with the style components. Since frame of motion and style components use the same declarative API, so they can work out really well together. So that's what we're going to be using in that particular case. So yarn add style components, then also do we're going to be needing frame of motion. So that's basically all you need. Just click enter and everything is going to be installed right into the place. I already did that. I already installed everything I'm going to be needing, and also make sure to start up the server here and just do yarn start for starting the React application. So let's just walk through here and let me just show you a preview what the application looks like. So here's actually the application right here. It has some content. I'm putting the black background in here just for the preview because as you've seen before, we're going to be putting all of that, and the menu in here can come in white, so you can see the difference between that. You can see the animation really well, but you can change the background into like white, and you can put some like shadow to the menu, like border or something, and it still will work perfectly. So yeah, this is basically what it is. And here, as I said before, it is a pretty simple navigation bar. And the hamburger menu is going to hang into the top of this navigation bar, so it will live there, and the user can toggle between either click it, it opens it up, or he's going to get like the class so he can close it back again. So I'm going to be creating all of that from scratch. And I'm going to be using a couple of things before starting. So the font we're going to be using throughout the video tutorial is actually called Poppins in here, and it's available for free on fonts.google.com. So you can grab it real quick in here, and it has italic. It has from like 300 I think to 900 to absolute black. So it does a pretty great job, and it looks absolutely phenomenal. And I'm using it right here. So make sure to set up the font. So you can go to index.css, just import the URL here from Google Fonts. And simply what you can do, just like make sure to put the body to use Poppins as the first default font. So it will be applied by default to all elements, H1s, Ps, paragraphs, everything. So all going to share the same font right here. Pretty basic. Now let's jump into the same basic stuff, the navigation bar in here. All I'm doing is just like creating a simple navigation bar and giving it a border to the bottom. Right here, just like, say navbar. And this is what we're going to be saying or putting the hamburger afterwards. So yeah, pretty basic stuff. This is a navigation bar, and for the app.js as well, it is pretty simple. We got the navigation bar, and here we got some inner container, and we put in some content. So you can imagine this inner container as your pages container. It can have some content, like you show products, show anything. So whatever your website is, pretty much the context of the website or the content of the website is going to be put in here. The navigation bar in here is going to hold the hamburger menu, and it's going to do all the job of heavy lifting of the menu. Either it collapses from the right, and it's like the animation, everything goes behind the scenes there. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started and put everything into the place. So let me close this, close that, And inside of the components, I'm going to be adding the hamburger component. So it's just going to be a hamburger menu. I'm going to name it the same thing, so hamburger menu. That's simple. So I'm going to have, okay, so we're going to have index.jsx here. Yeah, pretty basic. So we got the index.jsx. Let's go ahead and import React real quick from React. I'm going to export a function in here. And this should be the main function that is exported for the hamburger menu. Now let's go ahead and create some container for the hamburger menu. And remember, the hamburger menu composes of two parts. The first part is actually the icon, or the SVG icon of the hamburger, where you see like the 3 bars out there. So it's going to be first one. And this is actually the toggle button that allows us to toggle between the two states, either open the menu or close the menu. So this is actually our going to be like, main button state. It's going to be the main action listener and the main state changer. And I'm going to work all of that. So first, let's create the main wrapper that holds this icon with the menu. So let's go ahead and name this hamburger menu container. And I'm going to import style components. So you're going to use the magic of auto import from VS Code. And this is going to do the job for us. So for this one, I'm not going to give it really much of width or height. I'm just going to say display flex. So it flexes like really well there. I'm just going to leave it at flex direction of, row, and it will work perfectly in that particular case. So I think this is pretty much all we need to do with this hamburger menu, because it's just like a container, nothing more, nothing less. Now let's go ahead and take care of the second one, which is the most important part. It is the hamburger icon. You see like the 3 bars and stuff. So where all the magic going to happen, this is actually where you're going to be having it. So the hamburger menu, or the hamburger icon, is going to be hamburger icon, and this is going to represent the container of that particular icon. So we can have it in different sizes, different stuff. For me, what I'm going to be having is I can either tell it to either reverse the color or not, because if you've seen in here, I'm having black. But what I want for the menu is going to be white, and I want the hamburger menu to be toggled and changes the color between black and white. So if it is currently right here, the menu is closed, we want it to be white to show up on this background. But if the menu is actually opened, so the menu has like a white background as you've seen before. So in that particular case, we need to toggle the color into gray, like we reverse the color into like, this pitch black thingy, and it should do the job perfectly. So therefore, I'm going to be having in here is actually color, and I need to change the color correspondingly for that particular case. And I'm going to be checking for that color. So for color here, what I'm going to be doing is pretty basic. So I'm going to have it first. Okay. Reverse color. So how can I reverse the color? It's pretty basic as well. So I check if reverse color. If that's what I'm going to be putting is actually you can put completely white or completely black if you want it to be reversed, because by default it's going to be white. So you can have it like by default it's going to be white. And here it completely messed up, so just make sure to use the right curly braces instead of normal brackets, and it should do the job perfectly. So this is for the color. It's pretty basic, just reversing the color. Second, we need to make sure that the cursor pointer, so whenever we take the cursor above the actual icon, we need to have this like handy thingy, so it gives the user this feeling that this is kind of like a clickable thing, so you should click it. So yeah, that is pretty basic as well. We also might want to give it a z-index, because if the menu is actually open, we won't be able to see it. So make sure to put a z-index 99 or whatever index is actually higher than the menu's index. Otherwise, it won't work perfectly for you in that particular case. But 99 should be like the highest index among all of your elements if you're just like following the CSS design patterns properly. But yeah, never mind. You can just put it the highest number and it should work perfectly. Yeah, in the second one, I can put some transition to it. So I can say all, you can just do 250 milliseconds and just easy in and out. and that should do the job perfectly for me as well. So this is the hamburger icon, nothing too complicated, nothing too shady. Yeah, we can work on the second one, which is the actual menu container. Now for the menu container, we're going to just take it basic at first, since we want a simple white background, and we don't want the menu to take the full width of the page, only like a 40% or something of the page. So yeah, just what it is. And also we want it with a fixed position, so whenever the user actually just like scrolls down or something, the menu stays static accordingly or relatively to the Windows position, or to the Chrome position or the browser's window position. Yeah, so I'm gonna just name this like menu container styled div, and for this one I'm gonna say the width is gonna take 100%, but also to limit this I'm gonna give it a width or maximum width of like, I can give it a 40%. I also want to give it some minimum width for that, so I can give it 300 pixels for the minimum width, so it could work perfectly on mobile devices and responsively on all different aspect ratios, just to give it a bump that it makes sure it works perfectly. So yeah, I think this should do the job perfectly for that in that particular case. So yeah, for the max width in here, we will see how things should be going, but I might increase this like a little tiny bit, like 45 or 44. We will see that. Also, we want to need the background color of FFF to be pitch white, and this is also really important. I want to give it some box shadow, just to give it this, it's a menu, so you have to pop it up of the background to make it like, it pops up like a pop-up. So you need some shadow for this kind of pop-up, kind of like illusion. It is part of like UI designing. So yeah, this is what we're going to be using. I'm also going to shift some X here. So I'm going to say -2 pixels on the X to have it go, since we want the menu actually come from the right, so we can have this go to the left, to create this kind of like pop-up illusion. And you can have it 0, you can have 2 pixels for blur, and you can do RGB, just, kind of like use pitch black for this, and 0.3. I think it should do the job perfectly. Also for the Z index, as I said before, we want this to show up on top of the menu, so make sure this one is actually higher than this one. So for this one, I'm just going to give it a 90 to make sure that it's higher than the rest of the web page's elements, but in that case, this one is actually higher than it, so it shows up on top of the, the pop-up menu. Pretty basic stuff, nothing too complicated. We can move right now into, well, let's see. Everything should be working absolutely fine in that case. Yeah, we can just assign some display to it, and yeah, so before that, let's do position to be fixed, and let's say top is 0, so no margins, and for the right, just make sure it is 0, because we want it to come from the right, so this way it should do the job. And yeah, so that should basically do the job perfectly in that particular case. We can also have we can disable the user select and make it none. So whenever we double click the button or something, we won't want any selection goes throughout the menu. This is kind of like disturbing, but yeah, here we can disable it and it should look a little bit nicer. Always make sure to do so whenever you have a clickable menu or pop-up. It should make things a little bit look, a bit more decent in that case. So yeah, I don't know. For the padding, we can add like 1 EM. Well, let's see, to 5 EM or something, since we want a little bit from the right and the left, and we will see as we go even further throughout this. So yeah, pretty basic. Let's go and try to put things into the play here. I'm gonna have hamburger menu container. This is the first one. The second one I'm gonna have in is actually the hamburger icon, and this is where we're gonna be putting the icon, and afterwards we're gonna have the hamburger menu itself. And for this one, I can put the menu. Now, here we don't have an icon yet, but let's go ahead and test it out and see what's gonna have around that corner. So here, instead of the navigation bar, so I can have a hamburger menu. Yeah, that should be okay. And make sure here for the nav bar, if you're doing it right, I'm just here doing like row reverse to make sure the menu goes into, the right. side there, but you know, it depends on the navigation bar and how it's being aligned in your particular case. So yeah, let's go and see this. Sorry, is that? Let me just gonna refresh that real quick. I don't know why fast refresh is not working perfectly for it. And for some reason, for a kind of like a silly bug in here for the menu container, I put, instead of the menu container, I put the hamburger menu, which is causing like a for loop or an infinite loop. So yeah, without these ridiculous issues, we can go back and see, yeah, we've got a basic stuff in here, and we got the menu kind of like showing up, but I don't have the full width for it, so I'm not setting the height, which I should set the height to be 100%, and that should show the full menu coming from the right, and it should do it perfectly as we want it to be. So clearly in here, we're looking super perfect so far. You know, this is the menu, this is how it should be looking like once, you know, it pops out and it showed. But of course you can go ahead and hide it. So clearly in here, I even got the icon, so if you can do it, but we still don't have the SVG icon yet. So for that, let's go ahead and make sure that the SVG works. I'm going to create another component because what we want is actually take this SVG component and try to include some animation to it. Like the hamburger menu, once we click it, you know, it takes this like menu bars and it converts it just like with a smooth animation into a cross, like a closing cross. And this way it just like makes really things look professional in that particular case for the animation. And we can also move from the cross. If we just like toggle or close the menu, we move it back to the menu bars, and this would look absolutely amazing. So let's go and do this. I'm going to create this like menu toggle.jsx, and yeah, so for that particular case, I'm going to just go ahead and import React. I'm going to export a function menu toggle. Gonna have props normally. So in the top in here we need a button, and this is going to be our toggle button, like the main container. I'm going to name it button. I'm going to include styled. I'm going to have button included, and in that case all I'm going to be doing is just like, you know, increase the z index, make sure it sees 99, otherwise it won't work perfectly. Also what I want to change the pointer or the cursor into a pointer and make it like, you know, more clickable. Pretty regular button stuff on the CSS. So this is the main button in here, and for the actual rendering we're going to be doing is actually make sure to render up the button first. So this is going to be our toggle button, but from the props we should expect if the actual menu is open or not, so we can toggle between the states and we can, you know, like play the animation. And also we need the toggle function or the callback function. Once we click the button, we can trigger out something like close the menu or open up the menu. So it's a toggle function there. I can just include this as a toggle and the other one as is open. And this is a boolean expressing is that open or not, and just a simple toggle function. Now once on click, so once the click happens, all I'm going to be doing is actually toggling. Pretty basic. Now the actual main important part throughout all of that is actually the animation and how to do SVG animation. So as we all know, SVG is actually composed mainly about the path elements, which, you know, renders a single path like a line, like a circle or something, and you give it the exact, you know, positions. And how SVG works, like you give it a position from 0 to 1, draw me a line with this particular slope or something like that. So this is how it works with CSS SVG and how HTML SVG works in general. So to do the animation, what we need to do is actually manipulate basically those paths. So if it is open, we just like, you know, show up this cross thing. We just, you know, draw a triangle, some kind of line with a specific stroke and stuff. So it could work perfectly. Once it is closed, we can just show a normal hamburger menu with the 3 stock lines underneath each other's in a white color and white stroke. So this is basically the idea behind it, but you should know how to work with SVG, otherwise you will just like have a kind of like, you know, hard times to understand how things should be working. But I already got the code in here, I already got some SVG elements that can do the job for us. So for example in here, let's go ahead and create something first before jumping into that. So I'm going to be creating a path component, just a dummy functional component in here, and this one is going to take simply some props, and it's going to return some elements. for the element it's going to return is actually motion. So I'm going to use or import the motion. So motion in here is going to import frame of motion, and as we all know, if you're not familiar already, the frame of motion exposes the same API as style component. So if you click OK, or the interlicense in here, you can see it has all the HTML elements you can work with. But what it means is actually those elements are animatable, so you can include whatever props or data and make the divs or the p paragraphs, anything like that, can have animation throughout the motion API here. So what I need for that particular case, I need the path, since we're going to be working throughout some HTML in here and just doing the animation. So we kind of need the path in here, and all I simply do is actually render out the path. So for that, we need some props. So just gonna, use ESX destructuring for that part. And in the second part, I'm gonna just, by default put stroke width, and those are actually path attributes, or, path attribute that goes into the HTML in here by default. So you can include stroke width in here, and I can say, for example, 3. So just to make it a little bit thicker, and we can make, for filling, we don't need any filling, so we can make transparent filling for the SVG, and last but not least, the line cap in here. So I'm going to give it like rounded, you can remember border radius. So this is how it works in here. So stroke line cap, and you can make it round. We're pretty basic, and whatever props you're going to be passing it throughout this. So this is props, and this is, okay, misspelling it. So whenever we pass in props, we can have it here. Then we can use this functional component right below here, and you can make it work perfectly for that our case. So yeah, let's go ahead and do this, and we can just go ahead and first render up an SVG, as we all know. I can give it a width, for a hamburger menu, I can give it a width of 23 or something, and that should do the job perfectly. A height of, let's give it the same height in that particular case. For the view box, well, what is actually the visible view box? I'm going to make it full visible. So X and Y are going to be 0, 0. Width and height both takes the same width and height. Yeah, so as far as I see, that is it. Now we're going to render up the first path. And for the first path in that particular case, what's going to have, it's going to have something pretty basic. We're going to apply some animation depending on this toggle, or, this state is open. So we're going to have animate, since this one is actually exists, or it is kind of like, it renders up a motion.path, so we can have all the props of a normal motion element or frame of motion element, and we can pass it all the props it works with. Now if animate, if it is actually open, what I'm going to be doing is just going to make it open or not. So you're going to say open, otherwise closed. And for that, we're going to have some variants for that particular case. I'm just going to make sure it initially starts as false, so we're not going to accidentally play the animation once the page loads. And here I'm going to include some variants. Now this variant is going to tell how the animation is going to work perfectly. So if it is actually closed, what we're going to be having, we're going to have like a basic, I'm going to include some path in here, which means closed means we're going to show up a normal hamburger menu. So we're going to play a horizontal line. I'm going to make the stroke white. So for that case, I'm just going to copy it here. I'm not going to, do it all the way again myself. So I'm just going to copy it. I already got it, as I said before. And this is how closed should look like. And this should be an object, because this is actually a CSS style, and that's what's going to be applied throughout this. Now, otherwise, if the state is actually open, so you can go ahead and apply a different style, which means we're going to apply a different D path in here, which is going to tell it to render like, a diagonal line for the cross. And you will see, and you will understand me exactly what I'm saying in here in a second. And also need to change the stroke in here to like complete black, because we're toggling between white and black. So make sure to change this with HLS or HSL. You can use RGB or something, just pretty basic, nothing really too complicated. And yeah, that is it. That's basically what you need. For the transition, we can define a custom transition in here. So I'm going to say just like transition equals duration, and I can give it 0.3 seconds, which is like 3 or like 30 milliseconds, by the way, for this animation to work perfectly. So yeah, we can go ahead and include that here. Outside of variants, we can have transition and transition. Now, whenever, if it is actually opened, we're gonna apply open, which is gonna lift this CSS style in here. It's gonna do like a diagonal line. Otherwise, if it is closed, we're gonna just throw up all of this in here. So for you to fully understand what I'm doing in that case, I'm gonna go ahead and just use this menu toggle. It's not complete yet because we need to draw another path, because a single path in that case only shows a single horizontal line. But in the other case, what we need is actually for a hamburger menu, we need like 3 horizontal lines, or for a cross, we're going to need like 2 crossed lines. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and do this. Here's the hamburger menu. I'm going to just include menu toggle, and for the menu toggle in here, we need to pass here the props. So for the toggle, we're going to have some toggling going on in here, which we will have in a second. And for is open, also for now, I'm going to make it false. I'm just going to show you how things should be looking like right now. So we can just take a look in here, and yeah. So Screws in here, it kind of like doesn't show up because the menu is open. But if we like close the menu, which is take the menu off the way. So yeah, it's kind of like shows up a little bit, but it's not the same way we want it. So it's now, it is rendering some white kind of line, but it's rendering it like a box because it doesn't have the other elements. So you can go ahead and fix that real quick in here by adding the other elements. So let's go ahead and do this. Now for the path in here, it works perfectly. This is the first path we need to be worrying about. Now for the second and the third path, I'm going to be doing the same thing. I'm not going to go over and over for all of this. So I'm just going to copy this real quick. So this is actually the second path. I already got it here. So the second path is the same thing. We got some D here by default going, but what we're going to be doing is actually the variance. If it is open, we're going to make opacity 0 because a cross has 2 only lines. So this line is optional. We can go totally go and ignore it and make the opacity 0, hide it. Otherwise, if it is a hamburger menu, what we're going to be doing is basically just show the line, because this is the middle hamburger line there. Goes inside of it, so it should work perfectly in that particular case. So yeah, that is all you can probably say about that. Let's go ahead and copy the last one, which is the last horizontal line, and for that, it's pretty much the same as this first one, just draws the same thing with everything behind the scenes. So yeah, for this way, it should look perfect in that case. So let's see the hamburger in here looks like, but it's not perfectly being aligned because I'm having like some background color that is not doing it perfectly. And as far as I see, the hamburger icon in here won't be that much of beneficial, so we can get rid of it for now. And take a look on the button here. I'm using a button, but I can totally change this to a div and it should solve the problem. You should see it a little bit better in that particular case. I think this is way much better. And we can, you can do like whenever you hover over it, you can have some like animation goes through it and stuff like that, but it's not really that much of important for now. Now let's go ahead and take care about the animation, passing the right props, and we can make it work perfectly. So therefore here we got the toggle. Let's go ahead and create a toggle function. So for this one I'm going to do const so set open and is open. I'm going to use normal React state, so I'm going to use use state there. First, it starts as false, which means it's completely closed, and this is what we want for like a toggleable menu that comes from the right, so or hamburger menu, whatever you want to call it. So this is how it should work perfectly in the top first, and here I need to like toggle menu, and for that, all we need to do, make sure to set open and just like reverse that and say, go to the negative in here and negate this, just say not is open. So if it is true, it becomes false. If it is false, it becomes true, vice versa. So yeah, that's basically what it is in here for what's going to happen. Pretty basic. So it's going to pass in toggle menu for that case. So here, I think you should see the animation work perfectly. So if I click it, well, do I have is open? I'm not passing it properly. So let's do it again. Passing it. Just clearly see whenever I click it, it changes pretty perfect. I don't know if you see like the darkish here, but it works. The animation works. You know, the actual hamburger menu in here actually translates really well into like a cross, and it makes this perfect transition. So the animation looks really professional and really perfect from that particular case. And you know, the horizontal or the middle horizontal line goes out of control. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that in any case of this. It looks amazing so far, as I say. So yeah, pretty basics for that. Let's go ahead and make the menu show up right now real quick. So here we go. Look, the toggle menu in here with the SVG works perfectly. It might need some like, you know, brushing here and there, some like, you know, changes a little bit, but we will care about that in a little bit later. Now let's render up the menu. So the menu container, so it's going to have the menu inside of it. And for this one, it's always going to show up. So the toggle won't work in here. The icon won't work. The button won't work. So let me just get rid of that. I don't know why I have opened this one. But yeah, I jump back in here. Now to make the menu container work, we need to include some animation into it. And we need to make the menu container in here, instead of like a normal styled or normal HTML element, into a frame of motion element that is animatable and has all the props needed to add the animation into this particular menu container. So for that, what we're going to be doing is actually motion. I'm going to include motion again using the magic of VS Code or auto import, and I'm going to have a normal div. Right now we can include some animation to the menu container and we can make it look perfect. But before jumping ship, let's go ahead and create the variants for our menu so we can, you know, toggle between the states either open or closed. So here we're going to do menu variants, and it's going to have two, of course. So it is either open or closed. So if it is actually open, what we need to make it is actually, we can toggle, you know, the animation. So we want the menu to come all the way from the right to this position. Like it goes from the right to the left in a really smooth, like sliding animation. And whenever we close it back, it goes from the left to the right in another really smooth sliding animation. And we can use some spring animation in here out of the box from Frame of Motion to do this, like, you know, awesome, cool, like springing going all the way right, all the way to the left with a really awesome smooth spring animation. So therefore we're going to use the transform in here, the transform CSS property, in order to translate the X value of the menu like left and right, since it is fixed, so it has like an absolute positioning system and it can work perfectly. So therefore I'm going to do translate X, and only need to care about the X because the Y is static, it takes the full page height, so you have no worries about that whatsoever, and we only need to translate the X in that particular case. So we're translating the X, we want it, like for example, to be open, to come all the way from the right, which means like a minus X to come to the left. So for that case in here, let's see, for like the translate X in here, we can have it perfectly come to like 0 AM, because this is the normal position. Like this is how it normally looks like. So by default, this one, translate X, is setting on 0 AM or 0 by default. So we can have it come to the default, but also like if we take it from here when it is closed, so you can have transform, translate X, and we can take it a little bit to the left so it could work. And since, you know, from the left to the right is actually a positive positioning, so we can have it this way. For example, you can go in and include like a 4 AM, I think, because, you know, it depends on the width of that, and it should look perfectly. So you have a max width of 44%. I think this should do a job perfectly, but you have to test it perfectly in order to make sure it works with all aspect ratios and display sizes. But yeah, so this is for the transform. Also in here by default, make sure it is completely hidden, which means it completely has this transform translate thing right here by default. So you can have transform translate X, and you can have it by default goes to the 4 AM, so it is completely hidden by default. Now let's go ahead and make some transition to it. So you can say menu transition to make this work perfectly. So for the menu transition, I'm going to have a type of spring. So let's test out some spring animation. For the duration, well, let's see. For the duration for that, it could pretty much, like, let's say it takes a second to complete. Since we're using spring animation in here, we can go ahead and like toggle out the stiffness a little bit, like the spring stiffness. I can make it a little bit more stiffer, like 33. I think by default it is 30 or 20 or something, but yeah, you can increase that a little tiny bit. And we might also add some delay to it, since we will see about that, but since the actual animation of the icon in here, you remember the menu icon toggle in here has this awesome SVG animation, so if you don't delay this menu, we won't be able to see that. We won't be able to see this animation happening in the real world. So we have to see the animation like a tiny bit, like a menu transferring to a cross, before we can show the full menu. So therefore, let's go and save this in here. Let me just add some animation to this one. So first I'm going to say initial equal false, which means the menu by default doesn't play the animation once it is mounted into the DOM, and this is what we want for the menu in here. And for the animate, so if it is open, I want to do open. Otherwise, simply put close. Pretty simple. Now for the variants, we can have menu variants again. And last but not least, we can have transition to menu transition. So yeah, pretty perfect so far. Let's go and check it out. So screws in here, it kind of like opens up and it closes a little bit, but it's not looking perfectly as we want it to be at that particular point. And yeah, so yeah, we were using a static like transform or translating positioning in here, which is quite bad. We shouldn't do that. So therefore, we can make sure that we translate this or transform it to like, 100%, so it goes right into the left. And for this one, we can just leave it 0, okay? 0 should do the job perfectly. And make sure to include percent, otherwise it won't work as we want it. So percent here, and percent on top here. And this should do the job. So if you click that, clearly see the animation plays really smooth. If you click it back, it closes, and the hamburger menu still plays the SVG animation, and it looks absolutely amazing. So you see between closing and opening, and even does like some spring animation out of the box. But if you can't see that properly, I don't know if you can see it, when it closes, it takes a little bit of time to finish. And also when it opens, you're seeing some cliche at the end in here, like it's shaking or something, like a little bit glitchy. So something wrong with the width, it's not working perfectly. So therefore we can go and offset this to make sure it works. For example, we can go and offset it by 3%, so it goes a little bit deeper to the right. And also we need to like pull it up into a little bit upper from the right into the left a little bit. So we can have a 3% or just offset it by 3%. Let's see if it does that job. So yeah, there we go. It perfectly works now. There was some like shaking there, some glitching happening behind the scenes, but perfectly right now it looks absolutely amazing so far. So yeah, so far so good. I think this is like the menu animation in here looks absolutely amazing between toggling this and the other state. So yeah, absolutely amazing when it works with that particular case. So the menu animation, it looks so far so good for me. So it closes, it opens, and yeah, you got yourself a really smooth menu animation. You can go ahead and play out with the stiffness if you want it, a little bit like speedy. You can increase the delay if you want the menu to show up a little bit more delayed. I don't advise with this because it will look a little bit kind of ugly in that case. I don't know. I think it looks... I'll just leave it 0.1. This one is a little bit more faster and it looks in a perfect sense. So yeah, now we got the menu, we got the pop-up. Let's go ahead and add some content to the menu, and we can animate this content too. So let's add some menu items and some menu content. So I'm going to create a separate component. In that case, I'm going to make it navigation menu.tsx, and here I'm going to include some Reacts. So export a function called nav menu. Going to have props again. And for this one, I'm going to have, the basic container of navigation menu. So I can say nav menu container. auto imports style components, say div, and okay, so you can create grades. Since it's gonna live inside of the actual pop-up menu, so you can make it take the full width in that particular sense. So it will work in a perfect sense of like taking the full width in that case. Also, I might like have it display flex to be flex direction of a column, since you know a menu, so you've got the items going in like beneath each other's. So this one should work perfectly. And yeah, so there you go for the column, flex direction, and everything. And here for the navigation list, I'm gonna create another component. So styled div, and we can say like navigation list. But for this one, I don't think this is a div work, so we need to use UL instead. I think it would perfectly work. So for the padding, we can say 0 because it by default has some padding. Well, for the width, we can have it like 100% width to take the full width. The display in here flex, and flex direction should be column. As always for a list to work perfectly. And I might change the padding a little bit, so I can increase some padding from the left and the right to 0.8, I don't know. We will see about that in a second. And the later thing we need is actually the navigation items, or the single link of the menu, like the menu link or something. I'm gonna name it nav link. It's gonna be styled, but we want some animation to go to this navigation link. So therefore, we're gonna be including some frame of motion animation. And here from the beginning, I'm gonna say motion. So I'm gonna import frame of motion. Then I'm gonna do, since for this one, I'm gonna use li for list item. And yeah, I think this should work. So the font weight, I can increase this to be 600, even greater. Font size, 18 pixels. For the color for this one, well, let's see, where is our actually black color? I don't know where is that. So I think we can go and check out the app.js. It has some background color there. Probably. Or we can go and use our custom color. So let me say this can be DDD. I think DDD is actually white. Okay, we can AA. It's not perfect. 777. Okay. I'm gonna use 444. Is it it? Yeah, I think this one should do perfectly the job. In our case, for the actual color matching. I might also include some height. So we wanted to have some heights between each other. We can have height of 100%. I also want to do like flexbox and justify the content, or more likely align the items center so we can align them vertically. Also cursor pointer if you want to click that, and let's include some transition phrase. So you can have all, you can have 200 milliseconds, and easy in and out. Okay. So therefore, what we can do in here is some hovering effect. So I can go ahead and toggle between the color a little bit. So I can make the color 555. I don't know. We will see how the color should go in that particular case. But I think since the nav link in here, or the li, is gonna hold an hyperlink or an a tag as an element, as first child. So we can have it here, I think. So we can have, if it is hover, we can change the a tag because it's going to be its own child here. So it should work in that case. Also, I might need to like change a little bit about the a. So I can say, so if a, I can change the text decoration to be none. Well, for the color, I might need to include the color here instead of there, I think. And also I might include the font size here instead of up there. I think this way should look a little bit better. Also for the transition, it should be down here instead of top there, because I'm gonna apply the hover effect on the A level instead of like the LI level. So it should work perfectly right now. And yeah, so let's go and make this happen. I'm gonna do nav menu container. Then we got nav list, and we're gonna have a navigation link. So the navigation link, I'm gonna have a simple hyperlink here. Just gonna use here, and for this we can go and just say whatever. Like for example, we can say go back home or something, and that I think should work. So we're gonna test this out and see if it does a job or a good job already. So here's actually the menu, and we can have the navigation menu. So where is that? Yeah, there you go. It works already. It's clear in here. We can easily see the menu. But if you close, it's clear to see the menu doesn't play an animation. Like the menu here stays static, which make it look a little bit weird. It doesn't look that professional. Like it doesn't make it full responsive, or the menu is like alive and is smooth and it plays all the animation required. So it's kind of nifty in here. So we can go ahead and make this animation. Like whenever we close, this menu items goes all the way to the right, or whenever we open it, the menu items comes to the left, like they come all the way from the right to the left, like the menu does. So it make it more like alive. So yeah, this is the case we're going to be creating here for the navigation menu. So therefore we're going to be using the same thing in here, just the same stuff inside of the navigation menu to animate between stuff. But we first need to have the toggling way in order to make things work perfectly for us. So therefore we can have the same thing in here. Just use isOpen from the props to check if it is open or not. And here I can go ahead and have initial to be false. Do not play at first. We can have it animate. So if it is open, we can make show. Otherwise, completely hide it. So we can have some like menu or link variants in here, basically. So we can have show and hide. Now, if it is being showed, like it is completely showed, we can use transform and do the same thing as we did with the menu. So we come it back from the right to the left. So we can do translate X, and we can have this to 0, obviously. And we might also need some opacity to make it 1. Otherwise, we can use transform again, and we can make sure just to do translate X, not Y. And for this one, we can take it a little bit to the right. I can do just like 5 EM. We're not taking it 100% to the right, just a little tiny shifting, like a little bit of kind of offset should make it look better. And there we go. And also for the opacity in here, just completely hide it so we can have this like fade and slide transition. It should look pretty great so far. So yeah, that is what it looks like. But what I want exactly, since we're going to have like different menu links, so each menu link, like whenever, for example, the home in here is actually the first child. So I want the animation to go like the first child goes first, like being hidden first, then the second child follow it after the first one. So you can have like this, descending animation, not all of them at the same time, but they go like one by one, and they can play a really awesome, synchronized animation. It look pretty great. So let's go ahead and do this in here. So therefore, to make this happen, we can't use a single variant in here. So we have to play it out. We can use custom variants on each navigation link layer in here to make it work perfectly. So I'm gonna have variants again. For this one, I'm gonna have the same variants. So either show and hide. But for this case, I'm gonna just do variants. Give me the variants dot show. So I'm gonna use the previous values, and we can override this to give it like a different values for this one. And all I'm gonna override is actually transition, because all it needs to be changed is actually the transition in that particular case. So I can say, for example, delay, the hide transition of it, or the show transition of it, to 0.3, because in here we're doing show. And for the duration, you can make it, let's say, for example, we could play 0.2 or something. We will see how things should be going after we finish it. This is for the show. Now for the hide, we're going to do the same thing. So variants, the hide, you're going to have transition, And so for the delay, we can use like 0.05. Duration goes the same thing, 0.05. And we will test things out, and we will see how it should be going with this awesome transition. Now, before forgetting, let's go ahead and put the ease open in here, otherwise it won't work perfectly for us. And what you could better do to make this work, you can create a context, like a simple React context in here, just put it in a file, and you can share this, the toggle function, for example, you can share the ease open. It's rather than just, explicitly passing it each time to each component. If you have really long list of animatable components, you can do it this way, and it's going to be super easy for you to manipulate all the data coming across. So yeah, I perfectly advise with this if you have a really huge animation kind of thingy going on. But yeah, so that is what it is. Let's just jump back, refresh. So take off the menu, as clearly see now. If you close it, it goes really quick. And if you open it, as clearly see it comes back. So open it, it comes all the way back in here. If you close it, it goes really smooth and just really quick to the right. So yeah, it looks pretty amazing. It's going to add some other menu items in there. They should do the job, I think. So as this one is doing it, so for the hide, yeah, I'm not I think it should do the job perfectly in that case. So yeah, let's go ahead and have a different link in here. You can add another child, but for this one we need to increase, not for the show, but for the hide. I think for both of them, because we're gonna have this sequential work kind of thingy, so we can have both of them working that way. And each time we can increase at 0.05. So for example here, this one's going to be delayed for another half a second, or just like a half millisecond to work perfectly. So this time we can have it at 0.1 because we added 0.05 if you do math right. And the duration is going to take the same thing. We're not going to just toggle the duration whatsoever. And only for this one as well, we can toggle up the delay, and we can make it 0.4. So to make this sequential, as I said, it waits for this one to finish, then it plays the animation, and so on and so forth. So if we close it, so you see the first one goes first, then it follows it, the second one. If we play it, the first one comes first, then the second one. Play it back again, and it does the same thing. Play it back again, and it does the same thing. So yeah, pretty great. Let's change this to, I don't know, let's see, products, to make this, kind of like occasional and make it work perfect. So if it is open, we do that. Otherwise, we do it this way. And also for a creepy animation, make sure to include the EM in here. Otherwise, it might give you just a weird animation, since it takes the 0 as none and stuff like that happens with the CSS. But if you do it this way, the animation should look better, as crazy in here. So it works all the times, and Helms comes out, then products comes out. Yeah, really well. So let's go ahead and add all the rest of the links, and we can just keep synchronizing and stuff like that. So I'm just gonna copy this one real quick. We can have it this way. So where is the second one I've got? Where is that? Snarf AQ, KBNFS, products. So yeah, we can have key benefits in here. I can increase this by 1 and this by 0.05. Should do the job. Next, copy paste it again. So where is that? So we might have about here. So we can increase the same thing in here. It becomes 0.2 and this becomes 0.6. I think 0.5 from 0.4. Cool. Then 0.5, then 0.6. Then we can have another one like FIQ 2.5 now 7. And this way. The last, okay, we can have contact us or something. Just pretty basic. 3, and this should go to 8. So let's check how the menu now looks like. Here you see we've got a lot of menu items. If you close it, it's clear to see it plays a really awesome animation. They all go to the right. If you open it, they all come from the right. Like, it's the same animation of the menu, so we make it look more natural animation. So yeah, it goes back and it goes here. Really, really cool animation that comes back and forth without any of that. So you can of course tweak the animation to your standards. You can tweak the stiffness. This uses spring animation. You can check the duration, how many items you've got, plenty of stuff going on. But basically, this is all I'm saying that you should probably worry about. I might include or increase some font size in here because I don't find it really appealing to be looking this small. So 20. I think this should do the job in a better way. 40 pixels. Key benefits about contact us. 42 pixels. A little bit bigger. Yeah, it looks better, definitely. So yeah, it all looks perfectly, really good. So far so good. So yeah, looking absolutely amazing for that case. And lastly for the menu in here, let's go ahead and include something really cool as well, which is the login and register on the menu just on the top with just simple animation doing the same thing as the menu, just sliding right and left. So you can go ahead and add on top in here, just like you can click on login, click on register, wherever. So yeah, we can jump back here. So jump into index, and before any of these, so I'm gonna have two containers. I'm gonna have like the top container, which is gonna hold up the login and register, and the rest of it is gonna hold up the the navigation menu we were working on. So this is the top container. It's gonna be display flex, just simply what it is, a normal display flex. And make sure to put the width in here 100% to make sure it takes the full width of that. Okay. Also, I might have like an icon container, and this one's gonna hold some kind of like an icon container for us. We can do, for example, we can have, I don't know. We'll see about that. So 19 pixels, I think, or 15 pixels about this. We can have a color of this grayish color. So let me just use 666 555. I think it should do the job. I might also include some padding to it, like padding to the right would be 5 pixels. I don't know, we will see about that. Now let's add the actual login button container that's gonna hold all the login information, and it's our button once we click it. So we can have login button styled, and it could be, so since we're gonna be using some motion animation in here, so it can be like motion.button. And yeah, so it should do the job perfectly now. I can go and take off the border, we don't need it. And for the background, you can make this transparent because we don't need any background from the behind the scenes there. For the background or for the color in here, let's go and use the same color as this one. We will see how it goes. So font size, well, we won't want a really big like button, so we can have 13 pixels. Font weight, we can have 700 for the font weight, which is quite large. And so transition, we can do all, I don't know, 250 milliseconds, easy in and out. I think this should do a job. Now once we go hover over that, we want to change the color obviously, because that's what the transition what exists for. And you can make it like 666. I think it should look better, I don't know. We will see how things should be going this way. And yeah, so also might need to override this, just remove the outline from it. So whenever we focus, we can do outline to be none. For that, well, I think, yeah, I think that is what it is. Also, I might just like do not. last of type. So since we're going to have not only login, we're also going to have register alongside of it. So you can see if it's not last of type, we can include some margin between these or some border to separate between both of these. So you can have border right, 1 pixel, solid, and we can see, for example, EC, just a little bit kind of a grayish color. Not really that much of grayish, but it should do the job perfectly. And yeah, so as far as I see, it looks so far so good here. And last but not least, let's go and do another container. So this one is going to be the content container. So style div. It's going to be display flex direction of column. So it's going to have this, descending column direction kind of thingy. It should do the job perfectly for this case because it's going to only hold the necessary information that we need, nothing more, nothing less. And I might also need to include some margin to it. And there you go. So let's go and do this. Let's copy this one. I'm going to have top container. This one is going to hold the login information. And I'm going to have the content container where the navigation menu lives up. And in that case, right down there, what I'm going to have is actually the login button. Okay. So I don't know why I have double G's on login. So let's have this. So login button. And yeah, I'm going to have it as login. I'm also going to use the icon container for doing this one. So I'm going to have icon container, and here we can put some icon. Now, it's completely optional to do so. It depends on your application and stuff like that. It's not fully included with the menu, but you're still going to have, you can go in and use it real quick. And what I'm using in here is actually Font Awesome icons. And you can go ahead and install that real quick. So that's simply what you need to install to use the Font Awesome icons. Just Awesome SVG core and the free solid SVG icons, and as well the React Font Awesome. So make sure to install these to be able to use the icons. I already did install everything. So yeah, let's go ahead and do this. So for the icon container, we shouldn't use this here. So I should go ahead and import Font Awesome icon for auto import. And I can say icon, and I'm going to be using fat user, I think circle. And this should give us like a simple, easy peasy user circle we can work with. So the icon container should come first because we want the icon to come first, then we can have some text afterwards. So for this one, where's the actual icon container? Yeah. Kind of like idiot for that in this way. And here afterwards we can have login in all capitals to make it look a little bit more standardized. Yeah, so let's see how this one looks like. Security login, and we got this one here. But for the login button, I'm not using really, let's see. So I need to use some display to be flex and flex direction, or simply just use display flex. And it should force it out to come into the line. And yeah, as far as I see, it looks way much perfect than it was. Let's see 900 here about that particular text. I don't know. Will it work? Kind of like we can increase this a little bit to 14 pixels, as well as the icon as well. So what is the icon? So we can make this 16. I think. Yeah, it looks way much better. I also have cursor to be pointer. And yeah, the actual hover effect is working pretty perfect with the transition and everything. So yeah, so far so good. Looking amazing. So let's go ahead and add the second login button. Or right now it is the register. We don't need the icon. I'm gonna completely get rid of it. I'm just gonna make this join us. And And here, I don't see you pretty much seeing it. So let's kind of take this a little bit into the grayish realm. Still not really visible. A little tiny bit. I don't know why this is not looking absolutely as we want it. So just a tiny bit. And there you go. So this one should do perfectly the job right now. But if you close, the menu still plays animation, but the login buttons are not. They're not moving. So this is not looking professional either. So it has to follow up the whole animation. So since the menu here has animation, since the the menu that we're collapsing and showing up has animation, so this login and join us should also include the animation. Therefore, we can do this real quick. So we can have some simple, another one here, just beneath this one, you can have common variants, and this one should have the show and hide. So both. So for showing, I can have opacity to be 1, and also I can have transform to translate this to a little bit more like to the right, or since this is actually show, so by default we can have a 0 EM, a little worried about that, but for the hide, we can do just like X, alright, and we can have it a little bit like 5 EM or something. Opacity should be 0, so it should be completely hidden, and let's go ahead and do like a common transition. So type is going to be spring as always, and for the duration, I think we can have a 0.1. I'm not sure about that, but let's see, like 0.1 or 0.05 for this common transition kind of thingy. So yeah, login button, and let's include this here. So for initial, false, animate. If it is open, just put show, otherwise put hide as we will do. And variance, common variance, transition, and common transition. Okay, where is that? Super cool. Let's see how now it looks like. Close it. The login now works. So it shows up and it gets kind of hidden a little bit, but once we open it, we are not seeing it correctly. So if we close it, we are seeing it. If we open it, it already being there. So we have to introduce some delay to only the opening, but not the closing throughout the transition. So therefore, let me just go ahead into, where is that? Here actually show, we can go ahead and toggle the transition here, and we can change the transition. I can have some delay, well, let's say 0.3, in order, like, for the menu to show up in order to come back. And duration, I don't know. We can include normally as a 0.01, okay? Yeah. And also let me just go and put this one as the same as the join us button. So you could do the same kind of appealing transition. So if you close it, they both get out of the way. Open it, they come back, all of them. So there you go. The menu now looks way much better than it was before with this animation. The button is now looking absolutely great. I might even go ahead and increase some padding between the buttons. So I can do, do you have any padding here? So 0. We can have this like 10 pixels from all aspects there. Okay, this is not perfect. So you can have 10 pixels from that side, and 4 pixels from the top and the bottom, or 6 pixels to join us, and let's have 12 from that side. The more spacing you have, the bigger things you got, the better it looks like. And I think so far it looks better. If you close it, the animation looks absolutely amazing. Open it back and the animation comes out with this really awesome menu. Of course, you can go ahead and add the menu. Now it is completely empty. It's not really that perfect thing to look at. Well, you can go ahead and add stuff to the menu. You make it, you can add a footer in here like privacy policy. You can add your logo to it, your website logo to it. You can add more buttons. You can make the menu a little bit bigger. You can even include your logos like in a bigger action or some images that shows your products in this menu. Or you can even make the menu a little bit more smaller if it depends on what you need. So yeah, so far this is actually, guys, what it is for the menu. This is how it should look. Hopefully, guys, you enjoyed actually making this menu throughout the tutorial. Hopefully it's not too long for you guys, and hopefully you enjoy all the animation or the React code, state transitioning, CSS code, side components, and pretty much everything throughout the video tutorial. So as always, guys, thank you guys for watching. I really hope you guys have enjoyed the video tutorial as always, and make sure to subscribe because I just put tons of amount of hours making these videos, uploading them, editing, doing all the kind of stuff. So it's kind of like helping me a lot throughout this. And make sure to share the content if you're not, because it helps a lot. It just keeps me motivated along the way, along the long run. And yeah, it's kind of very helpful for me. So can do that. Make sure to do it. Why not? And leave me a like. That's going to help me a lot too. And without further ado, guys, hope you guys enjoyed, as I said before, and see you guys hopefully in the next ones.